Hello there, my name is Retro. I just usually talk about animation, and today I do sort of a special segment article on abandoned animated films. It's basically talk about films that really nobody talks about that much, and they're actually some of them are really good, like Sherlock Holmes and the Great Escape. That's probably the best example because this movie was sort of kind of surprisingly good. It's one of the movies that was sort of promoted back in 2021 to come out here in the West, but be fair, this movie came out a little bit more earlier if the other side of the world. I think in Japan, in China, because it was sort of co-produced by two different countries. But this actually based sort of a manga series that got popular enough to make its own animated film. Of course, if you don't understand how the animated industry works, they usually do this not because the animation is, not because the manga is popular, is that sort of promote the manga to read the books. That's basically what they do. That's the end game every single time, especially if you know this in an anime fan, because it's kind of hard to be a fan of anime if they only have one season, you never get a season 2, and when to satisfy you is just read the manga. But other than that, this movie was sort of surprisingly good because I saw the trailer and the trailer was sort of questionable. It wasn't good, it wasn't bad. It's something like you was sort of confused, like, what am I watching here? But looking at me, actually, Sherlock Holmes and the Great Escape did come out in HBO Max. Yeah, that's why I found it. I thought you could find it in YouTube, you can find it in Amazon Prime, you can find it almost everywhere. If you want to rent it. If you have HBO Max, I recommend there's basically there if you want it. But other than that, this film is sort of really good, especially if you're sort of a Sherlock Holmes fan. In fact, it's not surprising because they do a lot of Sherlock Holmes film, TV series, animated series, comic books, you name it, there is a version of that. But I think this was probably the most unique because you wasn't sure what you expect. Because once more, I was sort of confused about the trailer. When I started watching it, I was sort of surprised, especially how the animation is really good. In fact, the animation is sort of fused to CGI in 2D animation, sort of like CGI sort of mimicking 2D animation, but at the same time you do feel the right edges of the CGI in other words. But it's done super well. It's something like, wow, it's really great. Especially the character designs of each character really pop out. I mean, the first you feel sort of weird because you're not used to seeing Sherlock Holmes with sort of a dog or animal proportions. I mean, there have been others. There's the Disney version of Sherlock Holmes that was a mouse. There's another one that's an anime called Sherlock Holmes the Green Hound or something that was basically directed by Miyazaki. You have before animals sort of Sherlock Holmes before, but this one I feel was special. This one was sort of respected. Respected. Every time they make a sort of an animated film for the whole family, it's always being talked down to, and Sherlock Holmes and the Great Escape never did that. It always was respected by the audience, especially Sherlock Holmes himself, because sometimes you have to tweak it, depends what version you're trying to show in other words. Because in the original books, Sherlock Holmes, he was an asshole, but he was a sort of a drug addict, and that's trying to, okay, can we leave that? Would he add that? What are you gonna do with it? And this was, I think, this is the biggest fun because you don't know what you're gonna get. And Sherlock Holmes and the Great Escape was a surprisingly really great film because how they introduced Sherlock himself, that he's a smart man, he was a straight man, he knows what he's doing. But I think the biggest surprise is how kind of likable he is. He's really liked about this version because he's trying to be, oh, this is a great man, but every time he messed up, he sort of questioned himself. Yeah, I love that because it feels they make sure this character is layered. Because that's sort of important because the other version of Sherlock Holmes, oh, he's just sort of crazy, a wacko, a weirdo because he's just super smart. This version, he's just sort of tame. You could say he's sort of an asshole, but not really. He's always trying to figure out what is the next clue. Especially you have other detectives like the constable trying to figure out the case without using Sherlock Holmes. He's probably the biggest asshole of the whole film. But once more, everybody has his own issues, their own quirks, but all of them are likable in other words. But I really enjoy is especially what happened to the case that Sherlock Holmes kind of hunt down this kind of thief. He's called the White Storm. That he basically was Robin Hood but the difference is where the time period relies on that was especially England, kind of the recession of that time period. That a lot of poor people couldn't have found jobs, and White Storm feels guilty trying to get money. In fact, he basically lost everything. You know what? I become a thief, and he was very good of it. But a lot of it is sort of what happened to Sherlock, that he sort of busts him, but he busts him in the wrong time. What I mean is sort of the layers aspect, because he tried to stop this thief. He know where he is. He know he's the next point. And the only problem is there was her daughter, the White Storm's daughter, that he has sort of a complex relationship that she knows but not really knows that his father, the one who kind of pays the person who protects the child, but not like a ransom, is she's sort of the orphan, but he always makes sure he has this sort of interesting appointment of her birthday every single year to see and check up on her. It's really sweet, because White Storm is also a layered character that he knows he could be wrong. He is wrong. But I enjoy it that he sort of realized that what he was doing was sort of bad, but at the same time it was sort of necessary. But he realizing the kids who kind of admire White Storm are trying to become thieves just like him, but not for a good reason. He just realized they don't get it why he's actually doing this. What he's doing was sort of noble, because stealing from the rich, give to the poor, because the poor family or the sector they live, they really don't have much of anything. They need something to eat. So yeah, it makes sense why he kind of like, you know what, I'm gonna retire. But I love this movie that it's sort of like one long story. Everything's sort of connected to one thing and the other, especially the main mystery of the first one, because the first case was sort of connected to White Storm and this other guy that I won't ruin, because this movie, what it does is sort of set all the pieces, all the chess pieces around you, and let you sort of maybe see you can catch it in other words. Because after you finish the whole movie, you kind of want to rewatch the whole film again, because it's the type of film that you probably missed something you didn't watch the first, and the very end of the movie they sort of point little things like, oh yeah, you rewatch it again, like, oh yeah, I forgot this, I didn't notice this or this, because it didn't happen to me, because they show a photo of one of the beginning of the scenes, and that photo is very important because they have maybe two characters very important there. They come up later on, but you don't realize it's the same character when you see it the first time. And it's one of those films, it just sort of catch you by the surprise. Also, I really enjoy is how sort of they show their scientific discovery of the case, especially how they use sort of different animations in every single chess they get. Like the first one, the first case, explain how the character died, and how they use kind of CG, but the CG characters or objects they use are basically wooden. In the next version, they're trying to explain a different case. They use like a map and little puppets. Like each different version is completely different, but at the same time, they give you that sort of catching a visual. Like it really grabs your attention because how creative each time they are trying to explain it, and all the little scientific information was given during that time. Yeah, I thought that's sort of clever because once more, it does not talk down to you because it respects your attention. If you're not that smart, it does explain it. Of course, I think the most interesting thing is everything in this movie is more like a character study in a way. I mean, you do have a plot and a story and a mystery. You have to follow it. But it's sort of the morality of each character, what they're doing was right. Like how Sherlock Holmes, he busts White Storm. He knew he could sort of mess up. He should have waited at least a few more minutes to actually arrest them. Or White Storm feeling guilty that maybe he's doing the wrong thing. Even with a normal cause, it does sort of have cause and effect. And that's why I leave up to the third character that I won't try not to talk too much, but he's not like a special, he's basically like a second main villain, but he's not a talented, but he's basically a muscle kind of type of guy. He's an idiot muscle villain, but he's very dangerous, and you kind of find out why he wants White Storm later on. I won't ruin this, the sort of the mystery. It's not a big mystery, like a big reveal. Oh my god, no! You kind of obvious, recognize it when you see it. But besides that, I really enjoy it because each character feels were never wasted, except for maybe Sherlock Holmes' best friend Watson, that he was used properly, but he just was used mainly as a common relief. Not just him, there are all other side characters did the sort of same thing, so let Sherlock Holmes look better. But once more, that's sort of a choice of a type of film. But it does not ruin the film. The film is great. It's just if you're the type of person who like that the character Watson, it's a more chance it maybe ruin the film for you, but not really. It's just like a small kind of change to make it different, but it works, at least in my opinion. But other than that, it has a lot of things that I really can't really say is bad, especially the action scenes. The action scenes are pretty well made because you have a lot of fight scenes. Okay, me not a lot. We have 2 fight scenes, but both of them are just so well handled. You're just like, wow, this was incredible. Especially they're allowed to show dead bodies and blood. Not a lot. It's just enough to understand, yeah, this was a murder. Let's move on. And that itself, it's fun. It's interesting. It feels they understood everything, understood respect the audience. Now, I really got nothing else to say. Just one question. Do you like this film? Do you hate it? You don't? Tell me down below. Let me know. I really got nothing else to say. Just thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and have a wonderful day. Bye.